Hello again, Mike Poeltl here, bringing you something different this time around. If you've been following the Honest Author episodes, you know that I've been busy reading your reviews of my newest novel as they surface. And so, thought for this episode, I'd read a scene from the book. Now, I've managed a few readings in the past from my other books, and thought it would be fun to try again with my latest work of crime fiction. What's also being referred to as reincarnation fiction. The scene I'm going to read you will speak to that aspect of the book, as the theme of past lives is an important feature in this work of crime fiction. So I'll get started. This scene occurs in chapter 10 and involves Clare and Peter as they sit down on their first date at a new restaurant which is taking Detroit by storm. The conversation never lags between them, and remains like this all evening through dinner at the trendy Poeltl the Raven, where Peter learns books can act as impressive decoration just as well as entertainment. They sit at a high table just beyond the lounge, where aristocratic-looking people enjoy the Gothic architecture concurrent with Poe's writings, sipping their pink ladies, whiskeys and ales. There's a theme to this place that resonates with him, as Clare knew it would. It's an expansive restaurant, segmented into story-specific spaces. They are seated in the coveted The Raven section, where there are several more named after Poe's works, like A Telltale Heart, A House of Usher, The Murders in the Rue Morgue, and more. Each section is decorated according to the author's imagination and remains cohesive throughout. The thought behind the place is impressive, Peter thinks. Dinner offers a similar experience. The menu items are cleverly described using a play on words that reminds one of Poe's literary stylings, unique and dark. Peter orders a chicken schnitzel platter, pounded flat with punishing impunity. Between them, Peter and Clare manage to discuss the finer points of Poe's ability to shift his readers to a demented point of view, and his use of language and symbolic play on the meanings of words. Clare is the perfect woman for Peter, he thinks, as he carves into his crispy chicken schnitzel. They enjoy a cognac each to end the experience, as it's considered Poe's favorite drink, which leads into a discussion about the author's notorious drinking habit, which contributed to his early death at 40. Imagine Poe reincarnated, Clare says, trailing a finger up her cognac glass where a trickle has escaped. She places the finger in her mouth and Peter watches her lips part to receive the fugitive drop. "He could be here amongst us," Clare says animatedly. Peter finds the idea of it exhilarating as well, having never given any thought to such a claim before. He finds himself smitten with Clare's enthusiasm. "It could keep you up at nights," Peter suggests, considering the lives lived in a room like this. "That guy," Clare points out a man 2 tables over, as tactfully as she can. "The one with the magnificent beard. I wonder who he was in a past life." "Rasputin," Peter jokes, lips pinched together in thought. Clare nearly spits out her cognac. A hand pressing against her lips conceals the outburst. "Oh my God, that's so Rasputin," she says through her fingers. Peter loves that he can make Clare laugh. She always lifts one delicate hand to her mouth as she does. "How about the woman at the bar? The one standing there waiting for a drink?" Clare deliberates a moment. "The Russian queen?" She nods her nod and smiles impishly at Peter. He raises his hands, and they fall to the table comically. They don't even know each other in this life. "It's cruel, really," Clare adds. "Not 10 feet apart, and they've no idea." She shakes her head joylessly, and then Peter watches her eyes sparkle to life as an idea corrupts her senses. "We should introduce them." "Oh, I'm not that forward," Peter admits, hands raised, but defensively this time. He hates approaching strangers unless it's on his turf. "Besides, we can't affect their fates." "Fate is fate," Clare returns. "Maybe we're supposed to interject. We could be part of their larger plan." Clare's suggestion isn't lost on Peter, but his hands begin to sweat at the thought, all the same. He spreads his palms over his jeans and feels anxious energy envelop him. He was never like this before Afghanistan, and it's becoming a real problem. Clare reaches across the table and asks for Peter's hand. He offers it, and she places it between both of hers. Her hands are cool but soft. His are boiling now and wet. I'm just kidding, Peter, she admits. I'm not going to force you. She looks at him with mock empathy, but I think it would be a good team-building exercise for us. Team building, eh? Peter laughs it off, but considers the story value if they were to attempt such a feat. Then what if they did look into each other's eyes and sense a connection? Could he rob them of that? Also, I'm feeling a bit adventurous tonight. Her well-maintained brows raise once, twice, 3 times, exaggerating her interest. You're relentless, Peter replies with a smile he feels raising the right side of his face. He shakes his head imperceptibly, but Claire notices. How do we do it? Oh, we order a drink for her and say it's from Rasputin. She leans into the center of the table on her forearms, and now he's doing the same, their faces inches apart. Okay, but we don't say Rasputin, right? Right. That's probably not his name in this life. Her brows cinch in together, mocking the serious nature of the game. Right, so can you get his name, and I'll watch where she ends up? Claire stands abruptly, winks at Peter, and carries her cognac with her to Rasputin's table. Peter watches as she introduces herself. Oh, it looks like a case of mistaken identity. She's good, he thinks. She returns to the table and sits. Max. His name is Max, she says proudly with a nod affirming her information. That was brilliant, Peter says, feeling a little flushed from the second-hand embarrassment over her brashness. Okay, I'll order at the bar and have them send the drink. At the bar, Peter asks the bartender, whose majestic mustache is perfectly twisted up at the ends, what the tall woman at that table, he points her out, just bought. The man tells him 2 whiskey sours, and Peter orders another to be delivered. Who shall I say is buying? Max, but that's not me. It's the gentleman with the long beard right there. He points out Rasputin, a lie taking shape. We're all old friends, and I don't think they've noticed each other yet. I want it to be a surprise. Peter winks at the bartender and leaves a 20 for the drink and tip. It's generous, but the barkeep needs to sell it, if this is going to work. Trust me, you'll be doing them a real service. Keep me out of it, though. Peter walks back to his seat, delighted with his role in seeing the diabolical plan take shape, wondering how this woman had convinced him to participate so easily. It's done, he tells her, picking up his cognac and sipping excitedly, watching the bartender walk to the Queen's table, present the drink, and point out Rasputin. Oh my God, Claire has both hands over her mouth. It's working. They giggle and watch the Russian Queen look past her girlfriend and wave subtly at Rasputin. He notices her wave and looks about him, curious whether the tall woman is waving at him. As Rasputin waves back with a raised eyebrow and a sinister smile, Peter and Claire can barely contain their glee. Holy shit, Claire can't stop smiling. Peter, she grabs his arm, slapping it lightly, and Peter turns to see what she's seen. Rasputin rises from his chair, excuses himself from the table of 2 men who don't share his penchant for beards, and walks confidently to the Queen's table. It's happening, Peter says, gobsmacked. Rasputin introduces himself to both women, and then focuses on the Queen. They share a smile and some words which seem pleasant enough. Oh shit, Peter exclaims. He's pulling out his phone. I think they're exchanging numbers. This is fate, Claire announces matter-of-factly, her hand slamming down upon the table. We just affected fate. So, that's the lighter side of the theme of past lives and killing karma. The game Claire and Peter developed during their first date is a playful nod to the more serious nature reincarnation takes in the book. I had a lot of fun writing that scene and others which follow in the same vein, breaking up the dark detective aspect of the story. Giving Claire and Peter something uniquely their own like that adds dimension to their budding relationship. I hope you think so too, and I look forward to your review. Until then, thanks for listening, and happy reading. Oh. So I'll get started. This scene occurs in chapter 10, where... So I'll get started. This scene... remains like this all evening through dinner at the conversation never lags between them and remains like this all evening through dinner at the trendy. They sit at a high table just beyond the lounge where, wow, he offers it and she's got. Claire nearly spits at her. Claire nearly